I mean, it's all tied together, right? The fact that we're, thinking we're being surveilled, which
Mm-hmm.
chances are pretty good we are. I mean, you have devices that are listening to you all the time. They're tracking
Mm-hmm.
you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
People can find you if they want to find you. They can certainly find you. They're
Mm-hmm.
using more technology now that the ICE and Border Patrol have all kinds of new technology to find out where people are, people that they are targeting. So it's pretty hard to feel comfortable or like at ease knowing that you are being watched. And for me, it's not as big of a deal because I don't think anyone cares very much about me per se because I am not any kind of a threat to anything.
They don't like an assertive woman. They don't like a woman who has an opinion. They don't like an educated woman. Okay, because you and I and who and whatever other woman who is combative and saying, nope, I'm not going to do that. Nope, you can't make me do that. I know my rights. They're trying to take our rights away from us. We are the type of force that they want to stomp out.
When you do go out and protest, when you do go out and even hold a sign and you're just being quiet and standing on the side of the road with the sign, you're not interfering with anything. You're not um, creating any kind of stir. You're just standing there. And the majority of the vitriol that is spewed your way is coming from men and not any specific age or any specific demographic, just men. By and large, I'm not saying that women don't get upset. I've had women give me the finger and say things too. But by and large, the people who are showing the most anger are men, white men. And until you like feel it, because I don't know, I guess I live in a bubble, but I've gone all these years without really feeling that kind of hate, you know. Um, I just never experienced it. And I started experiencing it, you know, about 10 years ago. And, people having no, like you said, they don't want women who are strong.
Yeah, because you're not supposed to back talk no man.
Or
You're not supposed to let a man know that you are smarter than him. You know what I'm saying? Everybody liked Maud, but nobody wanted to marry Maud because Maud had too much mouth. They wanted somebody, like I said, they didn't even like Lucy. Okay, they didn't even like Lucy, and because she always wanted to be in the club with her husband, singing and dancing. No, and Ricky always had, no, Lucy, you can't come in, you can't sing, you can't do this, you can't do that. So that was showing combative. Maud coming on the TV show, that's showing combative. You know,
what was the name of that show? Um, Moving on up to the east side, that one.
The Jeffersons, the
Okay,
Jeffersons.
okay, the Jeffersons. Because
And even George didn't like Florence because she was the maid and she used to talk shit to him.
right, so Florence spoke her mind, and also the wife.
Good times, good
I don't know what I
times.
don't know what George's wife did, but she was always like really well dressed. Like
She wasn't. She used to be down at the community center, the women's community center, and always doing things with the church. And
I mean, when you think back on some of these like super racist stereotype, the show where the guy was a junk collector, he
Fred Sanford, Sanford and Son,
Sanford and Son, yeah. But
mm-hmm.
the son was like, I don't know,
Lamont. Lamont,
Oh my
Lamont had
God,
a
your
friend.
memory is amazing.
Lamont had a friend named Julio, and George didn't like Julio because he said, "Here come the Spanish people on in, and the roaches and shit are gonna come in." And people like that. I was told several times in high school that I am Archie Bunker slash George Jefferson, because Archie Bunker was like, "Oh, you Orientals and shit." You know what I'm saying? Carol Connor. He used to talk about the Orientals. He used to talk about the blacks. And Robert Redford just passed away. We used to call him fucking meathead. You know what I'm saying? He was one of those liberals.
Reiner, Robert Reiner.
Daddy. Oh, Robert Reiner. Sorry.
I was gonna say Robert Redford. Know that.
I'm sorry. But George used to call him a meathead liberal. You know what I'm saying? Because he'd be like, "Oh, this," and they used to have several different TV shows. And Edith was like, "Oh, Archie, oh," Edith didn't do anything but run back in the house. And he used to say, "Oh, Edith," what I'm saying? What are you, he used to say, he used to say insensitive stuff to her, And George Jefferson, he would give it to his his neighbors, who Helen and what was her husband's name? I don't know. He used to call him the honky. So, Helen and the honky. That's what because they had a biracial family. And George was like, what the hell's going on here? All things you could marry. A white man, you couldn't find a brother?
I think that those characters were intentional, but it was good in the way that people had not, these issues were not being discussed, and now it was being portrayed on the TV. And yeah, some people would like Archie Bunker for the wrong reasons, but then you always had the counter to that was Rob Reiner and the what's her name that played his wife. Like
Susan Sarandon, right?
no, shoot, I can't think of her name.
I know she's
Sally
Sally
Struthers.
Struthers. Sally
Yeah,
Struthers. The
but
one
like
with Feed the Children a Day.
they were always contradicting him. They were always giving it back to him. So
Mm-hmm.
at least you were seeing like the two sides of the coin. And now it's like, what you're saying about people wanting to go back to, June Cleaver and back to those traditional, then there's no dialogue, there's no difference of opinion being shown. It's and we're all guilty of it. They say, we're all living in our own echo chamber. So like I'm only receiving things that are by and large that are sort of left and Democrat type stuff, and somebody who's more to the right, they're only seeing that stuff. And the more that algorithm you know is fed into by me clicking on this and clicking on that, or watching this and watching that, then I'm going to get only stuff that agrees with me, and the other person's only going to get stuff that agrees with them, and you're not going to see any of the dialogue.